Welcome back to the city of Riverview, where we have just about gotten the financial situation under control following the massive Economy 2.0 update, and we've even added our very first university in the form of this technical university in the northeastern suburbs. The city functions alright, but our education system is in complete disarray, so the plan for today is to build a massive new highway. Schools and colleges will have to wait a bit, as we'll be adding a brand new interstate, creating a full loop of thick concrete slabs surrounding the city. Now, right before we get going though, here's a friendly reminder to consider liking this video if you enjoy my content, as it really helps out, and maybe even subscribing if you don't want to miss out on future content or future votes, such as this one we're having right now, where we are deciding on the future of this empty lot right in downtown. Alright, so you may ask, why build more highways? Well, I think just from an aesthetic point of view, we are lagging in highways. I mean, this is supposed to be a North American themed city, but we definitely don't really have the density of highways here. So aesthetically, it's going to be a good addition. They're also pretty fun to build. They can be pretty destructive to build, which is also fun in its own way. But there's definitely also a functional aspect, because if we bring up the UI, we're gonna see the queues that are always present here. So one major bottleneck are the cars and traffic alongside the I-25 trying to turn right here to enter the Riverview Expressway and go to downtown Riverview. Because not only do you have the queue here to contend with, as soon as you get onto the Riverview Express, you've got a couple of additional queues. There's a queue here to get onto this off-ramp. There's a queue here to actually just enter downtown through the main roundabout here. And there's a queue here to enter downtown through this off-ramp we built a couple of episodes ago. And if we zoom out and kind of assess the situation, then it makes a lot of sense, because of course the districts we have here in downtown are just super dense. I mean, this area isn't all that big, but almost 15,000 people live here with 5,000 jobs. And some of these other areas here are almost equally dense. So there's a very, very high demand to actually enter this area to live, but also to work. And since we are analyzing the current situation, I'm just gonna give you guys the full tour before I reveal my plans. So the before mentioned I-25 cuts through the entire metro area. It connects down south with neighboring cities, and it connects up here in the north. And it has a ton of on and off ramps and different connections to pretty much all aspects of the city that it crosses through. And it's a pretty efficient network. There's a ton of traffic that goes pretty smoothly through this, you know, without the bottlenecks we just highlighted. So that's the major interstate we've got here, and then we have the Riverview Expressway, which, as you guys can see, terminates here in downtown. But it actually extends all the way out here to the east. It cuts through the satellite town of Kendrick, and then it connects somewhere out here to a neighboring city as well. So that's the two main ones. And then a couple of episodes ago, a handful of episodes ago probably, we added an extension here, adding an elevated segment and a big bridge, as well as this insane traffic monstrosity we have here. But we basically implemented this whole thing because traffic was getting absolutely insane here after the construction of the airport and the Southside neighborhood. And this original national road we had crossing here was also just a mess. And this project has been rather successful, of course, because we don't really have any bottlenecks down here anymore. So with that assessment of the current situation, here is the main plan. The main plan is to create an additional highway somewhere in this region here. Then we're gonna cross the river here close to Fawn Bridge. We are gonna cut through Northside, probably as an elevated segment to not cause too much havoc. We gotta remember that Northside isn't really a poor, improvised, minority-rich neighborhood, so we wouldn't want to destroy it to build a highway. And then we are gonna let the highway actually follow the riverbanks here of this river for the entire duration of it, and then it's going to terminate somewhere down here alongside this monstrosity, and that's gonna, it's gonna be really interesting to make this even more chaotic. But of course, any good American highway has to destroy something, so I think the good thing is that since we're not explicitly destroying a neighborhood, we are going to destroy a ton of recreational space right now that the Riverview inhabitants really enjoy. Because when I'm done with this episode, you're not gonna want to picnic here. There's gonna be 50 million gallons of concrete poured into highways here, and a lot of noise pollution and all that good stuff. Lots of on-ramps and off-ramps. It's going to be sweet. Complex and sweet. Now, the main challenge in building this is obviously that it's quite tricky terrain because the riverbanks here are pretty steep at some places. There's a bit of cliff texture as well, and then at other places it's a bit more smooth. And I kind of want to keep those features instead of just smoothing everything out, which from a contour and, you know, terraforming perspective would just make it a little easier to place these highways. But I think there's no way around the fact that I am going to have to use Move It quite extensively to probably align these and maybe even do something cool like stacking them on top of each other or other cool ideas we might get on the way. But I think the first thing I am just going to do is grab the 2-lane one-way highway, elevate to 10 meters, enable parallel mode, and then just start dragging out the network here. And preferably, I would like to try and get as much as possible placed without having to enable Anarchy. Now, I may have to enable it at times, but I just, you know, I know that if I don't enable it, then things are going to look pretty smooth and there's not going to be any weird like surprises when I start mapping it out. So we're just gonna try this again and just see if I can get through this industrial area here in Old Port. I'm gonna rig a few buildings, but it seems I'll get a decent enough clearance here. So I'm just gonna align like this, and then obviously I'll need to cross this area as well and get the alignment okay. And I think this is probably fine. And then we're just gonna follow the riverbanks, but I do wanna cross here and move over here to the other side so that we move alongside this sort of national road we've got here. And I'm gonna disable snapping actually and enable the contour lines, just give myself full freedom of movement. Once again, no Anarchy on, because then I at least know it's not gonna look too funky and that there's gonna be sufficient clearance. And then when we get into the nitty-gritty to detail and align it, we're gonna use Move It to get it real perfect. But it seems I can cross here quite confidently. And then it's probably gonna be a lot of fun if I can just move across the river here and kind of switch up the sides a bit. So I'm going to need quite a bit of an elevation change to get above this bridge as well. But then I can safely drop it to 10 again, I think. And we're just gonna follow alongside here. And then I think we're gonna make another crossing. And we'll probably need like a midway point here in the actual river, but that's okay because it's gonna force the game to produce a couple of bridges for us. And I obviously don't want quay walls out here because the water wouldn't be able to pass. So we're gonna elevate to, I think just 17.5 is gonna be fine. Once again, Move It is going to save me from all the mistakes I make. And then we're going to cross this bridge here. Just drop it as low as I can realistically go. And 10 seems to be sufficient. And then I'll basically just need to connect it up to this landing spot here where we'll get it connected to the remainder of the city. So I'll just make this connection. And as we actually inspect a little further and have a good look, then it's actually quite smooth throughout much of its stretch here alongside the river. And I think that's probably like the main con of just having it be really elevated, because if you have a good amount of elevation on, it's not really going to care about the landscape down below. As long as it's elevated above it, you're not gonna have any of the tracks acting weird or create any weird shapes. There's a bit of an awkward bump here, but otherwise things are looking pretty good, and we can now use Move It to kind of lower the segments we want to. So where do we even begin adjusting this and adding the many on and off ramps we'll be having here? There are plenty of opportunities here to feed traffic into the city, so it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm imagining that the two main avenues here in Bedford are gonna have some dedicated ramps, so that would be Garnet Street and Sunnyside Avenue. as that's a really good opportunity here to get some connections going to the new highway. But I think the very first connection we'll be making will be around this area. So we've got this Holly Highway, as it's called. It's more like an express road, which I think I'm going to add an on and off ramp to from the highway here. So just be using move it because I think it's way too tall here. I can lower this elevation quite a bit. We've even got a train here for scale, so that's yeah, perfect timing, I guess. But of course the catenaries need to be able to go under there as well. So I'm not gonna lower much more than something like this. And then it seemed we have a node here that's looking a little weird. Gonna lower that as well. And then I'm gonna try and create this connection here. I doubt this will be possible without using a bit of Anarchy, but we should be able to at least then see how we get it aligned. So I'm gonna disable Anarchy, disable some snapping, and probably not gonna lower by 10 because then we have a 10% slope here. So if I just go by 12.5, that's pretty good. And we can actually get this to work without Anarchy. As there's only the need for a single pillar configuration here. So if I just bring this back ever so slightly to around here, that's a pretty good road to feed on some traffic. Let's grab the free laners here so that we can do our upgrades. And we need a bit of space for the off ramp, so we'll do it around here. And I have tested with snapping and that's not gonna look all that nice, but we'll just get our lane math in place here. We'll do the very same here. Upgrade this segment, upgrade this segment, and then hopefully it's gonna be a pretty easy task of just getting these connections in place. I wonder if the snapping is gonna, yeah, that's probably gonna be a little tricky. So I might actually just do without any snapping so that I can just try and manually align it. And it seems I can even get this placed without Anarchy. So far I'm having a pretty good track record here. This one is probably a little more tricky and it might rig the construction a lot down below. If it's even gonna be possible without Anarchy, I don't think that's the case. So we're gonna enable Anarchy here and just lower that by 2.5 meters so that it's elevated by 10 meters, just as the new highway network, and get that placed. And it, yeah, I'm not thinking it's gonna be all that easy to run a business here or build this in the first place, but at least the pillars aren't actually on the road. So I am pretty happy with how this turned out. And we'll just be adding a traffic light here. And I don't mind, I think we have traffic lights on other parts of this route as well. So it's really not meant to be like a high-speed dedicated bypass. It's just, it's a little higher speed than if we had normal roads. And we don't have any zoning here, so there's not a lot of reason for the traffic to stop. So traffic does flow a little better here, but it's not a dedicated highway. We can add some traffic lights. I'm going to jump into manipulation mode in move it, and then I'm going to make these the ending here of the on ramp to the highway a little smoother by just dragging these nodes a little bit. And as you guys can hopefully see, we've got a much smoother ending here. Yeah, and we'll do the very same thing over here, of course. And it is a little finicky, so you'll have to be careful, especially if you start doing something like this, crossing the nodes, then you're gonna have some issues. So I'm just gonna try and kind of eyeball it to the best of my ability. Now, normally when you adjust these, if you hold down Alt, you can adjust them in like a fixed line or fixed direction, but of course this is a curvy element, so that's really not gonna work here. And this is probably good enough. The next thing I'm gonna do is just lower this overall segment a little bit, because I'm happy I made the choice of having the extra clearance when placing it to avoid any weird issues when placing it, but it also seems to be a little taller than necessary. I think we've got a semi-truck here for scale, and you know, you don't need to be able to move in here with really heavy like industrial loads that are more than maybe 3 or 4 meters in height. So I think it's safe to say we can lower this ever so slightly. And then I'm probably also going to be bringing these two highway segments closer together because the space is a little tight here. And I also think it's just gonna look cooler if they're kind of snug together. So I'm just gonna select a bunch of the nodes here. And I'm pretty certain we probably have the same clearance level. Actually, it's just about the same over here. Maybe the clearance is a little lower, but should be fine. We can just manually adjust that. I'm gonna try and use the replace functionality to just move these highways a little closer together, aligning them sort of like this, because we don't seem to have any like sea texture fighting or clipping issues, and it's just gonna look like we have two barriers here, which I think is a pretty cool thing. I'm gonna see if I can do it starting all the way over here and then just grab every single segment. Hopefully I can. So if I just move all the way through to right about here, then we'll just see how that is actually going to look. Just get it completely aligned to the white line here. Maybe just have it sort of visible on either side and click. And that seemed to work wonderfully. So I'm just gonna do that for the other segments of this stretch here, which is gonna be a little boring, so I'll be quick about it. And I think that little change has a pretty dramatic visual effect. Just makes the whole thing look a little more tight and compressed. A bit more like an inner city expressway than, you know, an actual interstate. Something I'd also like to do, which I think would make this whole thing a little more interesting, is to maybe make this new expressway here go below Madison Street instead of crossing above it. For no particular reason other than making it more interesting, but there is a pretty large clearance here between the actual river water level here and the ground level for the existing developments. So yeah, I think this is the spot. Also because I don't think I'll be having any on and ramps here, on and off ramps I meant, because we are probably just gonna connect the expressway to this beast here, and then you have proper access to much of the city and south side and whatnot. So let's just get some lowering done. Would move it of course, and this time around I think I'm just gonna grab the nodes that are really close to Madison Street, because then I can start the gradual slope quicker. And I mean, this is pretty much just what we need to lower down here to something like this. We've got a bus up here, so I guess that is a pretty good measure we can use. All right, things here are looking super duper funky, but I think we can get that fixed somehow. Yeah, something like this. And then I'm just going to do like a steady ramp here. And I don't know if there's like an easier way to do this. If you guys have found one, then please let me know, because I'm not feeling as comfortable with Move It as I used to in Cities 1 at least, where we had some really cool tools for creating ramps and just getting the heights perfectly aligned. I feel it's a little more difficult here in Cities 2. Need to do a little fixing here alongside Madison Street, but I think the main issue is probably we have too many nodes. Yeah, we've got one here as well, which I'm just gonna be moving slightly. See if I can align these, and then I'll be upgrading this to a bridge segment. So let's be upgrading this. I just added this weird little wall here, but I guess maybe that's kind of fitting now that we don't have an extra set of pillars. There's a bit of clipping here, and I'd preferably like to move the interchange here instead of the highways, because I just expect that to be a little easier. So if I can get away with just bringing this back, yeah, but that was a little too much, but just bringing it back ever so slightly, something like this, and then maybe just doing a tiny bit of adjustment here so that things don't look too weird. Maybe even a bit of manipulation mode to ensure that there's ample spacing for the trams that cross this bridge here. Something like this is probably gonna work just fine. And now we have decent amount of clearance as well, right? Oh, actually I'm not too sure. Let's grab a semi-truck. Not EU, they have such small puny vehicles. We need a proper America vehicle. Maybe the coal truck here is gonna be... I think we might need to lower that ever so slightly, but just from this look here, that is a little more interesting than just having it cross above. And it also makes decent amount of sense here, because it's not quite at level here, but it's close, right? Anyways, this variant we move in with some key walls here, and key wall of the Primrose Lane here, the small alley road, and perhaps also a couple of segments over here. And then we can get some surfaces, some bushes and whatnot added here, lots of trees and stuff to make it all look a little better, a little better integrated. Okay, so with this in place, I'd actually like to just connect both ends of this new River Express. Actually, maybe that is supposed to be the name, the River Expressway, in either ends, so that we can actually get some traffic in here. And I think down here we are just gonna do it the crude fashioned way by just connecting up to this massive interchange here. And then I'm going to use manipulation mode extensively, of course, with move it in an attempt to just make it look and feel all right. So we'll just go by about 180 here, actually something like this, and then just connect straight up. So it's a bit of a rough maneuver right out the get-go, and then I need to obviously align this, well, somewhat align it actually. So what I'm just gonna do is I'm gonna align this segment here, then we're gonna delete this segment and just draw that out, because I probably can't go too close. And we'll just get rid of that, and 180, and just get that in here, something like this. And then obviously we'll need to just flip the direction. Okay, so something like this is probably fine for starters at least. Let's get rid of this stuff here so we can see what we're working with. All right, manipulation mode would move it so that we can create a real beefy interchange here. I think actually let's get an additional off ramp here. I wonder if we can upgrade this. Yeah, that's not gonna work, is it? Actually, let's just downgrade this to a 2-laner and we upgrade this to a 3-laner. Let's just get a new node in here. And we'll upgrade this segment to a 3-laner, and then we'll do the same thing over here so that we can create a ramp here. And that seems to work okay. Just okay, not perfect. And let's see if we can actually get the alignment here. Probably not, but okay, so I just need to get this cleared, it seems. And then we can maybe get our connection sorted out. And I think that's just fine. So that allows for easy access here at least. Anyways, manipulation mode, we are gonna make this even more of a massive interchange than it already is. Bring this back. And this time around I'm holding down Alt so that it's fixed. But here's a curve, so I can't really do the very same thing here, but we are just gonna drag this out, make this a thick boy, and a real hillscape to try and maneuver in your car. That is one crazy looking interchange. So I can't bring it too far back. That's going to create some issues for the game in trying to render all these lanes. But I can do something like this, which I think is a pretty cool look. And then of course I can customize the traffic rules here with the traffic mods. For instance, here I don't really want a right turn because we've got a dedicated lane here to turn right. So we're certainly gonna get rid of this one. It's still gonna have a this type of error because this is considered a right turn, because this is considered going straight, which I think is just fine. We've got some U-turn possibilities here that I am just not happy with. Please go away. Oh, sorry, remove U-turns. Ah, that's very nice. And I think for now this is probably a decent setup. And we've got ourselves a real beautiful disaster here. It's gonna be very interesting to see how this is all gonna pan out. Anyways, let's move down the far side here at the very other end, where we'll need to create connections here. So let's just see what changes we'll need to be making. I think I'll probably like a proper double lane off-ramp, something like that maybe. So that at least this can turn into a two-laner real quick and meet up. And then over here, we're probably just gonna do with a 3-lane ramp, because I don't expect all that much traffic to turn left here. You'd probably make a left turn somewhere earlier in the system, I imagine. I can be wrong, but yeah. And we'll just keep this as is, I think. Yeah. We'll grab our 2-laner here and let's get in with a parallel mode segment, elevated by 10 meters, because I know that's the elevation we have at play here. 180, and just move this thing across. And it's probably fine with the 10-meter elevation, because it's only going to be about 7.5 meters above the actual level of what we're trying to connect it to over here. So I think I'm just going to keep a bit of elevation going, and then I am going to just upgrade this segment here for now, and then we can do the manual adjustment in just a second. Yoink. Alright, so this piece here we need to just immediately upgrade to a 3-laner, so that we can join with a 2+1. And the 1 we might even just add, actually that is going to be brought in from way over here, right? Yeah. So we'll just go freeform. I'll snap to this, and then I think I am just going to try at least to get rid of any snapping and just manually start raising this up. 1.5, that's good. And then, so if I go 7.5, I think that should be sufficient clearance for this segment here. And then if I enable snapping, I'll be able to find the right point, which is about here. Sweet. That's looking okay. There's a bit of encroachment here on these guys' properties, but a little bit of imminent domain. That's all fixed up in no time at all. Same deal over here, but I am going to start with the 2-laner instead. See if I can actually get this to work. We'll just go up by 125, and then let's just enable snapping and see if I can get the alignment to work with this segment here. Come on, 180. And get the connection up here. Yoink. And it doesn't really look too bad in its default configuration. A bit of move it, lowering some of these nodes, and it just looks a little better. And then we just need to connect so that you can get on from this expressway to the I-25, which is now the Lafayette Highway. Oh man. So I've just removed a little segment here, which I think I'm just gonna disable some snapping, and then I'm gonna try and just bring this out ever so slightly. And probably do a bit of elevation as well. Something like this, because I'll need to go above this ramp here, and I'll need to go above these existing ones and somehow connect all the way down here. Yeah, it's a little tricky now that we have this existing national road here. But I'm just gonna see if we might be able to make the connection all the way down here. We don't have any housing here, fortunately, so that does make the whole thing a tiny bit easier. But I think I'm gonna try and connect this first, and we'll just do it in the reverse because I find that a little easier. So is there any elevation here? 2.9, 3.9. Yes. We'll need a lot more than that. We'll need 7.5 at least to just get across these. 7.5. Right. And then the curved road. Okay, things got a little messy there, but we got there in the end, and I think this is a pretty decent looking connection. So the big joker here, of course, is do we have enough space for the other connection without this clipping into the other highway? Just going to upgrade here, and then, oh, this might be a bit too tight, so I'm just gonna get in an additional node about here. Then we'll downgrade this to the 2-lane segment again, and it would seem I need to do that manually to get a proper alignment. There we go. And let's just see if we can actually get this to work. We're gonna go freeform just like with the other road, and I certainly can't go for 180. I don't think so, at least, but I need to go above this. This is going to be so tricky. Just how much elevation is too much? 9.2, that's a lot. And I go above here. 7.5, 9.3, 9.4, 9. We're trying this, and then we'll see how this actually looks. I fear this is gonna need a lot of manual adjustment, but let's just get it in place, because then Move It might be able to just bail us out. And to my surprise, it's actually not too bad. So maybe Move It with a bit of manipulation mode, see if I can grab this one here and just elevate that ever so slightly. Something like this. That should just about be enough clearance. Obviously, I'll need to also elevate over here to just make it a little smoother, and just, I guess, just bring a little elevation all the way down here. I've just been adding in a thick layer of trees here, built a small custom pillar, and done the final small adjustments with Move It, and I think this is good enough. It's good enough for us to at least hit play and then see what kind of traffic we can expect on this new expressway here. So what was the name? River Express? I think would be pretty fitting, as it pretty much traverses the river that goes all the way around Riverview, and this one is obviously the I-25. Once again, so we'll do something like this, but it's going to be interesting to see how much traffic is actually going to be using the River Express, because we do not have any of these cool on or off ramps currently to, you know, really provide you with. I mean, I guess we have this one, so that does of course provide a bit of easier access to this area, but other than that, we don't have any of these cool on and off ramps in place, so it's pretty much just a way of bypassing large parts of the city. But we'll see. I'll let the simulation run for a bit, so some of the, actually never mind, we've got, let's see, we've got a Speedy Gonzalez here in his sedan. Actually, it is a she, Kate Miller, taking a little tour. Well, I guess this new off-ramp and off-ramp is certainly successful, and we're actually seeing a decent amount of traffic in either direction, and oh man, that just adds a lot to the cityscape. Look at this view here. Really feels like a big city now. But now it's time for the fun, complex parts, as we'll be making some of these on and off ramps, and I think we are gonna start with granting an off-ramp from the southbound River Express to Garnet Street, right here. So let's just see how we can make this work. I'll need to be upgrading so that we can prepare for the off-ramp. I'm gonna disable, yeah, it's not gonna work disabling snapping, but that's also because I've just brought these roads so close together now that is going to cause an issue if I try to do anything with snapping. So we'll just be trying to... How much space do I actually need? I think I'm just gonna start by upgrading this segment here. We don't have any pillar issues currently, so that's really good. Then we'll grab the one-way road here, and let's see, we'll disable snapping. And I'll need to kind of branch out so that I don't cause any issues here, and then I can't go too far down because that is going to, yeah, I'm having some clipping issues here. It's always a little tricky when we're working with elevated segments because they are gonna be clipping due to the barriers here. So I'm wondering if I need to do this in some other place. I'm just gonna try and see if I can branch out here without any issues. But it doesn't really look like it. Maybe this is actually... Oh, this is actually going to work, so that's good. So I don't want to start with any elevation that's going to cause any issues with the barrier here on the very corner, but I think this is going to work. Now we know this one is 10 meters above ground. So I'll just actually, let's just visually check how this looks. I think that's just a little too low. So if we get the clip, if we go 11.25, actually just 12.5, something like this. And then let's see if we can connect in here. Yoink. And then this should maybe be a roundabout. Which version though? We probably need a sizable one. Right, manipulation mode, grab these, bring them a little further back. Actually, I need to be careful now because I'm kind of messing up the roundabout as I'm doing this. So maybe that really wasn't necessary. Let's just get rid of the trees. We'll get rid of some of these paths here. We'll have to just redraw those. And this building here is one which we can just bring back a little bit, and then better bulldozer, remove sub elements, get rid of these bushes here, and that looks pretty nice. I think to cover up, I'm gonna grab the London plane here, enable Anarchy, and just kind of spam these alongside the riverbank here. Get like a thick layer of bushes in here. A few oaks. Very nice. Let's look down here and that's a little... This pillar is sort of in the way, I guess, but since that's attached to this node here, maybe if I'm really careful, I can just bring this node to right about here, which is going to remove the pillar, and then manipulate these small ones so that curve is still the same and it looks real flush. Very nice. Got a bit of an issue here though with a light that's just kind of poking through. Okay, so that little adjustment got that all fixed up, and we've got a nice used off-ramp here, although this is looking a little wonky, so I'm hopeful that with a bit of manipulation we can make it look real nice. So I'm just gonna hold down Alt and try and drag this so that we have a much smoother off ramp, and that works really well. Now the tricky part is trying to get this to look nice without having some weird graphical issues. You can kind of see things are starting to get a little bendy here, but I am hopeful that with some proper alignment here, oh, I don't want to change that one, then I can just make it look a little nicer, and I think that does look a little nicer. It's pretty obvious that this off-ramp is actually already quite popular, and to my surprise, it's only a small amount of traffic going into downtown from this direction. Most cars seems to be traveling towards south side, so I'm probably just gonna see if I can do like a small upgrade here to this road. Get in, yeah, we can get in an extra lane here, which is going to increase the traffic capacity ever so slightly, and then potentially I can just drag this out a bit, make it look a little better, make this whole intersection look a little better, a lot better actually, much bigger, and something like that. Oh yeah, much better. And then we'll just get rid of the trees here. I'll need to do a lot of landscaping when we're done with the highway network, so it's fine to just get rid of some of the trees that are poking through. But I think this was a pretty good upgrade, should allow for a bit more capacity. Now while we are here and we have a ton of office demand, I am just going to quickly expand on Westground and kind of repurpose this small area here. Don't really want these fancy looking single family homes to be right next to this massive intersection here. So let's move it and bring these buildings back a little bit. Something like this. Just gonna pause so we don't have any issues. Then I'll be upgrading this road segment to a proper road and just continue it like this, and then we'll make a smooth transition in here. And obviously I am probably gonna need to do a little adjustment here to once again make this one look very nice. It does now. This roundabout is probably of no use now. Find it, buildings, offices, low density, and with a big footprint. Something like this, I think. And then disable Anarchy, disable snapping. So I get rid of some of these trees as I play. Oh, that's actually the same as this one. So let's just move out here and get that placed here. And we're just gonna do it quick and dirty so I can get these extra workplaces in place here. Maybe have an additional parking lot here or something like that. We'll go for a 5er. Let's see, we can fit that in here and then just choose a random building. Might steal a bit of the, you know, actually this is going to work. Reduce the level here a bit so that we can squeeze in just a few more. Like this, and then we wanted a parking lot as well. Let's just grab one of these new symbol ones. Is this one gonna cut it? I think it is. Just get that placed. No detailing besides covering it up with trees with Anarchy. And then maybe a simple path so that if you want to get here from this suburban area, then you can just take a quick little stroll. And let's see, we'll just need to do a slight adjustment to the districts here. So what am I editing? This is Sunrise Corner, of course. Going to just expand on Westground so that these extra workplaces are part of the district. And I think that is a very, very small, quick change, but it's a little more fitting to such a large intersection here. Of course, we'll need an off-ramp into Bedford from River Express in the northbound direction as well. And there's actually a stretch here which is not an elevated segment, so I'm hopeful it's going to be a little easier to just branch out here. So if we just enable Anarchy so I can get this placed, and we'll just do that upgrade as well. then hopefully it should be a little easier to just get a stretch of road going here alongside the riverbank. And that messed up completely, so I am definitely gonna have to change that up manually. But what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring it to around here, then I'll be removing this small part of the lane here that doesn't need to connect to this roundabout, that's for sure. And then instead we're gonna connect the off-ramp in there, and let's just make the alignment nice and sweet looking. There you go. Because I don't think we need this connection at all. Let's just see what I messed up here. Everything, it seems. Yeah, so much for being at all these trees. Yeah, I'm just gonna get rid of all of this. I'm just gonna kind of trigger it, get that out of the woodworks, and then let's see. Get rid of all of this. I want to make at least one more direct connection to the inner city areas of Riverview, and there's an area here where we've got Madison Street, which is a major avenue, kind of terminate here alongside Ferry Street, but I think this would be a good opportunity to just extend it and connect the River Express directly to it, because then you can easily feed into downtown. So yeah, I'm gonna have to demolish a bit of stuff to actually get this to work, which is unfortunate, but I mean, it's all in the name of progress. So yeah, disable Anarchy, try to get a 90-degree angle, something like this, get this place down, we'll remove this lane and these houses, and then we will probably, let's see, I'll change this to a free lane, and I'll go for a one direction, and we'll do the same thing over here because we're gonna bring two ramps into connected here. So let's see, we'll obviously need to upgrade a segment here so that we can get an off-ramp through, or actually we should maybe just keep the free lane segment we've got going here with this on-ramp and just extend it to right around this place here. Something like this looks all right, and I think that should give us sufficient space for grabbing this one way and enabling some snapping, getting it attached to this segment here, disabling some snapping, and obviously I'm gonna have to fix the elevation here, and I'll be moving in with some Anarchy in just a second to try and fix this situation, but I think for now I just need to get a decent looking off-ramp started. That's the tricky part. So something like this, and then we can move back and change that up with some Anarchy, a bit of manipulation mode. But now I need to go down, and pretty sharply down, I think, because this is already moving down as it follows alongside the river here. So I'll need at least, like, I think 10 is probably fine. Try and slightly move underneath already, and then we'll just branch out here. And I want to connect here, so I'm gonna move all the way down to just about street level, which is another 9% right around here. So we're gonna have a bit of an awkward angle as we connect up, but I think it's going to look just about all right. Okay, so that's our first connection. Just gonna take a little look. It's looking super wonky. So there's definitely space here, but I'm just gonna need to do a little adjustments here of the actual slope we've got going. And just grabbing this one node with manipulation mode pretty much seems to have sorted that whole thing out. So that was a little easier than expected. which is always a pleasant surprise. And I think we might as well just upgrade this segment here to this highway version. And then of course we'll need to do the very same thing over here, and let's just check the elevation before I do anything. So it's probably going to be a little easier than that off-ramp. So if we just start by upgrading this segment here, then that's probably a good start, and we should be able to branch out from that. The tricky part is always just getting the off-ramp started, so this segment here in a decent way, and this is gonna cause me a heap of trouble as I try to do this. Yoink. And then wouldn't it be nice if we could just do a direct connection, and that would be it. Yeah, it's gonna need a little tweaking, but otherwise that was easier than anticipated. Manipulation mode should hopefully help kind of sort this out a bit. It's a little finicky, it takes a lot of tweaking, but I think this works quite alright for now at least. And I think I'm going to add an additional off-ramp to this intersection here. And by now I'm just adding these because they are fun and they look complex, but truthfully, American highway engineers seems obsessed with adding off-ramps everywhere. So massive metropolis, increased loan limit, wow. So we are gonna follow in those proud road planning, city building footsteps and do the very same thing. So let's upgrade to a segment here, see if I can just do, it would be awesome to just be able to do a completely direct connection in here. So about 180 degrees. Something like this, and then just bring that right in here, maybe create a roundabout. Actually, we'll do something like that. That is quite all right. I'm wondering if we should have like an off-ramp as well. We've started with this one, get rid of a few trees, and that pretty much just works right out the gate, so that's always nice. But before we do anything, I'm just going to make this a little more interesting. And I think for this new crossing we've got here, I'm going to do the same as I did over here in Westground. So I'm going to be removing a bit of the residential stuff here and replacing it with some office developments. I really think that makes a lot of sense for areas like this, and it's also just kind of to break up the monotony of some of these areas in terms of the development that is featured here. So I'll just be upgrading this road, that's okay, you can complain if you want to. Maybe we should even grab this awkward little shaped area here. That might be fitting as well, so if we just grab this lane here and expand that, we add a tiny interesting roundabout here, then we now have some new stuff we can play with as far as office development goes. So let's see, can I just upgrade this to a road like this? Once again, I just prefer to manually place it. It's a little quicker to zone, but not by a whole lot. And by manually placing, I have a little more control about what I actually want to place here. Gonna fit in a parking lot, probably of some sort as well. So I'll just need to reserve a bit of space for that. We can do that around here, I think. So I can go for a bit of a bigger building here on this corner. Then we've got space for a parking lot here. And as we move over here, let's just make sure we have a building all the way nestled in here in the corner alongside the roundabout. We'll get one placed here as well. We have a bit of space for a parking lot here. Parking, parking, parking. Good old American parking. Oh, but that, I don't really care about that. Let's see, this one we've already placed. Let's just go for a 4 then, grab this one here. No, wait a minute. Which one do I want? Actually, let's just go for that. Yank. Moving into parking. We'll grab the basic small parking lot for this area here. I'm pretty confident that, yeah, that's going to be a fit. That is what I planned for, at least. And then over here, that's not gonna cut it, but the modest parking lot is just about going to fit in here, right? It is. That's really nice. And then if we are doing not detailing, but just the bare minimum, and we just add a path or two in here. Something like this, and we'll do the very same thing over here. Just connect up this back area here and bring that down to this crossing. So it's just these very small, simple things. Also just removing the fins. Yeah, I didn't remove the fins. I ended up removing some of the parking decals, but I think that's okay. That's not a problem. And then of course the trees. You guys all know the deal by now. Enable some Anarchy, get a lot of trees in here. And yeah, it's just such a simple, small development, but it does really break up what was here previously, and I just think it looks a lot more interesting, especially from afar. I think I want to wrap up the highway development for now with a few on-ramps, because we've got plenty of off-ramps, but we don't really have all that many on-ramps if you want to get onto the River Express from any of these areas that it cuts through. So I think we'll be creating an on-ramp here that's gonna cross the river and connect to River Express in the northbound direction. And then potentially down here, we might just create an easy on-ramp for the southbound direction. Although you can, of course, get on it down here as well. So it's not gonna save you a ton of time, but it is going to make the whole development a little more interesting, of course. But I think we can start with getting on to the River Express in the northbound direction, because that is actually not possible right now, right? You will have to get on here, and that's about it. Yeah, okay, maybe we should actually just get on here, because we already have the infrastructure in place to do so. We even have the expansion here into a free laner, as we've got an off-ramp as well. So I think that is gonna be a good idea. I am going to pause the game, and then I'm going to get rid of a bunch of stuff here, and we'll get a few more offices added in. Yeah, it's starting to become a theme, but I am slowly but surely getting rid of some of the lower density stuff we have in here in Riverview, because it's just maybe not the best fit in such a dense area here, by now at least. Some of these single family houses are starting to look a bit out of place. But let's just get rid of this stuff here and then see if we can just... let's see. What are we doing now? Let's get this connected back up to this road here. Like this, and then I don't actually mind having this road down here, because that's going to allow us to branch off with the on-ramp, right? So if we just... I'm hopeful we've got enough space, because there's a bit of a difference in elevation here, but it shouldn't be too bad. Shouldn't be too bad. In fact, should we also have an off-ramp here? Oh, we might actually just... I'm gonna start with the on-ramp. Let's just do that. So if we just move out here, get some snapping in place, then... I mean, I'm hopeful it's this easy. Elevation isn't bad, 1.7%. Let's have a look. I mean, we've got a bit of wonkiness here, but that should be pretty easily solvable. And we've got something here causing a bit of an issue. Actually, it's gonna be manipulation mode to get this under control, it seems. All right, that is sorted out pretty nicely. And then, yeah, I guess we might just have an off-ramp as well. Now that can't be as easy, right? Nervous laugher? No, probably not. Not without messing with some of the stuff here, it seems. Actually, that's not half bad. Let's just see if we can make this one a little bigger. And this turned out all right. Yes, all I'm gonna say. I think that functions all right once more. And since we're on the theme of office buildings, why not? I mean, we have never-ending demand for office, and I know I could supply that, or I could satisfy that demand rather a little easier if I build some actual high-rises, but oh, actually, I think I am going to build an office high-rise out here near the school. Why not? Now we're just getting a few low-rises and a bit of parking in place, I think. And then for this one, actually, maybe I should go for one of these custom medium density offices I created. Let's just see if I can find them though. Yeah, one of these, where I have just grabbed a skyscraper and then I've sunk it into the ground to create my own type of office development. It's a bit weird, I know, but it's also fun. A fun way to just get slightly acquainted with the asset editor, I feel, so... Just gonna find the right one though. This one. And now that we've got an on-ramp in this southern section of the River Express, we should really just finish off with one here in the northern parts. And I'm looking at this segment here, I think. Let's just see if we can create something fairly simple here. If I were to upgrade that to this type of road, then I'm hopeful I can just bring an on-ramp onto this. But this is like a really tall segment, so it's probably gonna be... I mean, I need quite a bit of space. I need some elevation, so we're looking at something like this area all the way up here. So let's just get our 3-lane segment in, and I'm gonna be cheeky and try to just map it straight from here and onto the ramp. I'm not sure that's gonna work, but I've had good luck recently, so 7.4% elevation, that's not bad, so we're just gonna try. And then see how that actually looks, and it's really not too bad, to my surprise. Yeah, I mean, it's good when things go easier than anticipated, don't get me wrong. That's certainly a positive. And there you have it, just gonna get rid of this crossing here. We don't want this type of pedestrian friendliness, and we don't want traffic light here either, and that's pretty good, although we should probably upgrade this street then to this type of road here. Yeah, otherwise it's gonna be a bit of an awkward trip. You have to go through this row house neighborhood to actually be able to get on to the River Express. And that pretty much marks the final configuration we'll be doing of what I've just renamed to River Drive instead of River Express, because we've of course already got the Riverview Expressway, and I think River Drive is a pretty interesting name as well. So the only thing that's left to do now is finish up with some detailing. So we've got a lot of just trees I've been spamming everywhere, and trees that are kind of sitting in odd locations here alongside the riverbanks, and some parts of the riverbank that looks kind of bad as well. So I'm just gonna give it a full overhaul, do a bit of terraforming, add in bushes and trees in hopefully a much more sensible manner, and yeah, it's gonna be like the final step to really bring this whole area together, allow me to shoot some juicy cinematics as well. So let's just get right into it. And I think that's it for this detailing session. At least I don't have it in me to place a single additional tree or bush, and try to keep it relatively simple and not just cover the whole thing in trees, because as I've discussed before, I'm recently finding that it really adds something to have some open areas in between the layers of trees as well, instead of just spamming forests everywhere. And can I just say how happy I am with this build? There's been a ton of activity here alongside the new River Drive ever since implementation, and it's just adding a whole new vibe, I feel, to Riverview. It's just really helping bring that big city scale in here. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with this implementation. If we move over here, it is extremely busy as lots of traffic is now rerouted through River Drive instead of going all the way around. But I wouldn't have it any other way. It's not completely gridlocked and it just looks super cool. Of course, we're gonna have to monitor it to see if it continues being this bad, because then I'll probably have to do something about it. But speaking of traffic, if we move to one of our choke points here in the very center at the transit hub, then there's barely any traffic here. You know, this is all cleared up compared to earlier on in the episode, which I think is really interesting. Of course, this could just be like, due to the time. It's morning, so you know there should be rush hour, but I guess all the rush hour is down here now. But yeah, very happy with this build. So if you got some feedback or some ideas for how to expand or maybe slightly change River Drive, then feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you've got some ideas for Riverview that are unrelated to this new massive highway, that's fine as well. I am going to be wrapping up with some cinematics, which I hope you guys will enjoy. And then obviously, thank you guys so much for the feedback and all the support. I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.